Yet the Pentagon allows senators and congressmen to use luxury military jets to fly overseas on fact-finding junkets at no charge. The reason the public is not alarmed by the looming sequester is that the majority has decided that the sequester is indeed a ham-handed policy. But it's the only way the political class is going to be forced to cut any spending. The politicians in Washington were elected to lead, and it's high time they stopped threatening the people who pay their salaries and started leading the country toward sensible and effective budget cuts. I mean, for crying out loud, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell were on the Sunday talk shows this past weekend, and they were out here saying completely different things. These are the Republican leadership, the folks that are supposed to be talking common sense. Well, the House Speaker John Boehner and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell offered very different views on the sequester. Of course, the lawmakers failed to reach a deal to avoid these sequesters. Boehner was on NBC's Meet the Press, and he criticized the cuts, calling them silly and random. Quoted as saying, "I'm concerned about its impact on our economy and its impact on our military. Listen, we've known about this problem for 16 months. We've known the sequester was coming. I've watched leaders from both parties kick the can down the road. We're out of road to kick the can down." Boehner said that he believes the cuts were needed, but that there are smarter ways to cut spending than this silly sequester that the president demanded. We need to address the long-term spending problems, but we can't cut our way to prosperity. Really, some serious budgetary cuts, actual cuts, might go a long way towards that, Mr. Boehner. When asked how the cuts would affect economic growth, Boehner said, "I don't know whether it's going to hurt the economy or not. I don't think anyone quite understands how the sequester is really going to work." The House Speaker insisted that he did everything he could to avoid the cuts and blamed the President and the Democrats for not reaching a deal. "There's no one in this town who's tried harder to come to an agreement with the President and deal with the long-term spending problems," he said. Meanwhile, O'Connell struck a very different tone. He was on CNN's State of the Union, calling the sequester cuts modest, which is true. "We have a $16 trillion national debt," he said. "Our debt is as big as our economy. That alone makes us look like a Western European country. I think the American people know we have a spending addiction in Washington." McConnell also said that Senate Republicans are open to discussing how to rework cuts, but put his foot down on raising taxes. The first of the automatic spending cuts did take effect back on Friday, after months of unproductive negotiations between the White House and Republicans. The cuts total roughly $1.2 trillion, were designed in the 2011 debt ceiling crisis in hopes that it would force Congress to reach a deal to balance the budget. A congressional budget office official said the cuts would cost roughly 750,000 jobs. Last month, Boehner called the cuts ugly and dangerous. More to the point, Boehner also promised that they would continue to keep the government open. There would be no government closings. Now, I find that very hard to believe, as if you really want to take a look at what's been most successful for the Republicans, forcing a rather left-leaning Democratic president to come to the center and negotiate with you, the one thing that's worked best is what Newt Gingrich and company did back during the contract with America, and that is they actually forced 2 separate government shutdowns. Once the Democrats realize that you are serious about trying to force real cuts and that you're willing to take the political hit if there is any backlash for it, then they're forced to come to the table or to declare their true intentions outright. Now, if you have somebody who's a true politician, like Slick Willie was, he comes to the center. And then all of a sudden, ta-da, Bill's given credit for being the president during one of the longest times of economic surplus for this nation. The credit belonged to Congress. You could actually even point out Newt Gingrich personally for his leadership through that area may very well have been more individually directly responsible than anything else. But that's an argument that you're free to make on your own. I know how I feel about it, and I'm pretty sure most of you with common sense, if you take the time to look at what happened, will come to a similar conclusion, if not exactly identical. Point being, bottom line, you can't go out and say, we're going to keep the government going, we're going to continue to pass continuing resolutions, when that's the problem. Nobody's going to take you seriously in an effort to end government spending if you're going to continue to make the exact same moves that have landed you in economic dire straits in the first place. Continuing resolutions are part of the problem. We are constitutionally constrained, gentlemen and ladies. You who have been duly elected and duly sworn in, took an oath to office, you are constitutionally constrained not only to pass a budget, but to have one presented to you by a specific date, to debate the issues and the line items from point A to point B in that budget, and to pass a budget. Something that has not been done in over 4 years. The last budget we had was the last budget under George W. Bush. And the only real problem I had with Bush and his budgets is the fact that after we started military action in Iraq and then continued into Afghanistan, all of that was paid for through emergency spending. First time through, yeah, I get it. Emergency spending. You weren't planning on military action, or at the very least, if you were, you certainly couldn't sit back and act like you were expecting to do it. That might tip your hand. But when you look long and hard at being in a long-term military engagement, especially one as expensive as this, it has to be budgeted for after it begins. If you or I, kind listener, were to go around just spending all our money willy-nilly as soon as we got our checks, and then we didn't have anything left to pay our bills later in the month or later in the week, or based on whatever your pay cycle is based, I doubt there would be very much sympathy by your collectors, your debtors, your creditors. We are the American people. We are the taxpayers. We are the people that send these people to do this just bang-up job they've been doing. And the whole concept for government employment, especially on the political elected office level, has went from the mentality of public service to we're your boss. Wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care if you are the officially recognized President of the United States. I don't care if you're the majority leader in the Senate or the Speaker of the House. You work for us. We are your boss. And right now, from top to bottom, you are failing the people of this country by virtue of pushing your own agenda and playing your own stupid little party game. Look what we did to you. Oh, we're in charge over here. Look what we managed to get here. Ooh. I got reelected. Yay. It's all crap. You're not worthy of reelection if you're not doing your job. this country continues to spiral in a downward direction, and it's due to a lack of leadership on all sides. And the worst part is that both sides continue to demonize the Tea Party candidates who got elected, who came into office, and who are now like lone voices in the wilderness trying to talk common sense to a group of people who want to continue business as usual because it means more money and more power for them. I'm almost to the point now to just call for no re-election of anybody. Let's put in one-term term limits for everybody so that there's no question. There's no issue of whether or not they can raise enough money to get a positive campaign for re-election. There's no issue of whether or not it's worthwhile for businesses or for foreign influences like the Muslim Brotherhood or even the Chinese government to infiltrate and put politicians in their pocket. It won't be necessary, and it can't happen if these people don't get reelected. Those Tea Party voices who are trying to talk common sense, there's more of them there now than there's ever been, but they're still too small of a minority for them to get much of anything accomplished. And unfortunately, rather as a result of being bullied by the White House or because they're pushing their own liberal agenda, the media now, which used to be a watchdog that protected us from the government, continues to propagate for the government, to hide the truth from us, to protect the people that are pushing the same liberal agenda that they have, and to demonize those people with conservative values who are talking common sense, who aren't interested in becoming career politicians, who want to go there, do the job, get the job done, and get out and let somebody else continue their work. We've had men like that in the past. Fred Thompson, for example, former U.S. Senator from Tennessee. Most of you probably know him as an actor from Hollywood. Excuse me. He made promises up front. I'm only going to run so many times. I'm only going to do this. When I'm done with that, I'm out. He kept those promises. And he was an example of true leadership. And he was being pushed by Republican Party people to stay because he was doing such a great job and because he was a great face for conservatism. But he also knew how to play the game, and they thought for sure that they would be able to twist him into playing the game more than doing the conservative viewpoints. Why? Because inevitably, no matter what your intentions are when you first get there, you spend enough time in D.C., it is going to get to you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've ranted enough on that today. Hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast. I think there's no doubt now when senior media personnel like Bob Woodward can be bullied and they come out openly about it, there's no question that it's going on a wide scale for a lot lesser folks. And I think it's also pretty obvious that the Sequester Fear Factor tour is a bunch of crap. They've selected specific things that are going to bother American citizens. We'll talk more about it, but that's today's show. Thanks for listening.